I'm a believer there are no shortcuts in life. And coming from a very challenging childhood to achieving high levels of success in a big time company with big time expectations, that approach was very consistent there too. You just can't take shortcuts. Yeah, we all want to get there quickly. We all want to have all the things that we cherish and dream about in life as soon as we can get our hands on them. But that's just not the way I believe this is built. I believe that you have to look at life as a series of building blocks and foundational pieces that are added that continuously make you a better person and a level up person. And so I actually would be concerned, quite frankly, if I had instant success, not built off of lessons learned, not built off of dealing with adversity and resiliency and, having to really build a strong culture. I'd actually be concerned about that because there, in my mind, there is no sustainment model associated with that.
You're listening to the Black to Business Podcast, an educational podcast providing Black entrepreneurs with the tools and resources to start and grow their businesses. We chat with vetted Black entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and business owners as they provide tips and resources to help take your business to the next level. I'm your host, Monique T. Marshall. Welcome to another episode of the Black to Business Podcast. I'm your host, Monique T. Marshall, and today we are talking about one of the biggest moves you can make in your career, and that is stepping away from your corporate success and transitioning into entrepreneurship with purpose and patience. Now, I want to emphasize purpose and patience. So if you're still in your 9-to-5 and you're feeling that pressure to rush into building your own business, or if you've recently made the leap and are figuring out your next step, let me let you know that this episode is for you. We are diving deep into what it means to embrace the journey, play the long game, and build a business without compromising your values. Our guest today is none other than Derek Lewis, an accomplished corporate executive who transitioned into entrepreneurship after an extraordinary 35-year career at PepsiCo, where he held several C-suite and presidential roles. Instead of rushing into his next chapter, Derek strategically approached his transition with intention, leveraging his extensive experience to build something meaningful. And now he's a thriving business owner, franchisee leader, and author of Survive and Advance: Lessons on Living Life Without Compromise. In today's episode, Derek shares his blueprint for making a smooth and strategic transition, the transferable skills from corporate that can set you up for success, and the importance of cultivating strong relationships to sustain and scale your business. So if you've ever felt like you're behind or that success isn't coming fast enough, Derek's story is a powerful reminder that timing is everything and the long game always wins. So let's get into it. Derek, welcome to the Black to Business Podcast. Such a treat to have you on the show, so welcome.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'm excited to be here today.
Yes, we are excited that you are here. So we're going to talk all about from corporate success to entrepreneurial freedom and building a business without compromise. And you have a phenomenal story. So I would love it if you could start by sharing a little bit about your background, your journey into entrepreneurship, and how you kind of got here.
Sure. I don't know if you had that much time, but I'll get started. Grew up in a single parent family back in Washington, D.C., which I refer to as the Chocolate City. Back in the 1970s. It was a great era to be in that city, but it had, obviously a share of challenges that, we all had, a lot of us kids had to deal with and overcome. I was able to work my way into Hampton University when I was 17. Very proud to attend the Hampton University, HBCU, obviously predominantly known one there in Eastern Virginia. Was able to secure a business management degree there. Also pledged Kappa there. Also met my wife there. So I had quite a run at Hampton. It was a place that I looked at as really transformed my life, took me to elevated levels that really prepared me for the professional world. I also, while I was at Hampton, secured my job with Pepsi. I was recruited from them in the Baltimore area, started 3 weeks out of college, June 6, 1988, and then worked straight through for almost 35 years. Had a very decorated career, a great career, a great run. I basically almost did pretty much every job you can do in the organization, and spent 11 years in the C-suite and several presidential roles. Had retired at the end of 2022. At that time, I was obviously looking for transition to my next chapter, a new challenge, an opportunity to really create something for myself, and that was being an entrepreneur. I worked and really gained a lot working in a very structured environment for 3.5 decades, but I wanted something that gave me some flexibility, gave me some control, also gave me some sort of different fulfillment. And here I am today, being an entrepreneur and still in the very early stages of it, but very excited about the prospects that will bring for me and my family as well.
Love that. And I love old friendly rival. I went to Howard, so it's always good to hear like
Uh-oh, uh-oh.
I
No, I
know.
love Howard.
Yes, and that's such a phenomenal story. So you've had an incredible journey, and as you mentioned, 35 years in Pepsi. So for so many entrepreneurs, I think they can relate to your story in that they have this successful corporate career and then they want to transition into entrepreneurship. So for you, what kind of inspired that transition? And then also, what advice you could give to those who kind of feel trapped and they have that fear of transitioning?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and I surely had my questions as well about that transition. But I've always had a philosophy of betting on myself, believing in myself, and being myself. And so inside of corporate America or outside of corporate America, that still stands to be true. And so I took it upon myself really as a challenge. You could look at this in different lenses, right? You could look at transition to entrepreneurship as an area of uncertainty or an area of growth. I obviously leaned in on this is an area of growth for me. You can look at it as a situation where you're taking risk. I look at a situation where it's significant opportunity. Are you looking at this strictly as a money value producing opportunity, or are you looking at it as impact? I'm looking at this as impact. Yeah, certainly money will be part of that, but I'm looking at this much more as impact that I can have in my community, in my culture, continuously, obviously, with my family. So I think it depends on what lens you look at it through. If you look at it much more, again, as growth, opportunity, and impact, like I did, I think you'll tend to gravitate and move a little faster and more comfortably into that space. I think if you operate in the case where, I don't know what I don't know, I'm still not sure if I want to do it. There's a lot of risk associated with it. If I bet on this and doesn't work, then what do I have? And then strictly, if you're strictly money is your value proposition, and you don't deliver that, well, you deem yourself to be a failure. And I just don't look at that side of the coin. I look at the other side of the coin I spoke about. So I think you have to sort of be in the right mindset. You have the skills. So inherently, it's not to me a matter of whether or not people have the skills. The
Hmm.
skills are very transferable. It's really your mindset.
Yeah, I agree. And speaking of transferable skills, for many people, they might not think about leveraging that experience maybe in their corporate career. So, for you, how did your experience at PepsiCo really prepare you for entrepreneurship, and what were those skills that were transferable?
I think it's had a profound impact on my
Mm-hmm.
ability to transition to this space. One, I think brand building and marketing. I think I have very, very strong acumen there, and I think a lot of obviously I work for a company that produces some of the largest brands in the world, multi-billion-dollar businesses in themselves, and so having a really strong, call it marketing, brand building acumen will transfer immediately, and already has transferred immediately. Two, operational expertise. Again, I mainly through my career was in sales and sales operations. So I have sort of deep and extensive operating background, which again is suiting me well. Going into a restaurant business that suits me very, very well. Talent management, again, was sort of a core strength and value for me as a leader inside of PepsiCo. So, I'm bringing that along as well. Community engagement, involvement, customer relationships, customer management, really across the spectrum, every skill, every job that I have learned in my 35 years there is very transferable over to this new world, and actually is propelling me in some ways, hitting the ground running because I look at this much more end to end and taking consideration all the things that impact the end to end journey when you're starting a new business. And so there are a lot of learnings I'm having. By the way, I'm not saying I've mastered, I'm perfected the craft yet,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm on my way. I have a lot of confidence, and I know there's certain areas that absolutely feel very, very comfortable to me, and I'm going to exploit those pretty quickly while using sort of new spaces that I haven't necessarily learned or gained over a career in this space. I'll pick that up pretty quickly. I'm a fast learner and take that in consideration as I move forward.
That's some solid advice. And Derek, looking at like taking that leap and just transitioning, what should corporate professionals consider before they take this leap into entrepreneurship, knowing what you know now?
Well, I think you have to, understand. You got to have some context on why. Why do you want to do this now? You certainly got to have some what I call comfort and confidence in doing it. And also, I think this is a time to unleash your creativity. What is your idea? What are you going after? What are you shooting for? Right? How high is high? And now you have the ability to unleash these things that you might not have been able to before in your corporate space. So I think making sure you have idea, you have a plan, You understand sort of the risk tolerance for that. You have a built-in support system in terms of your team and people who are going to help you be successful. This is not certainly a solo journey for anyone. It shouldn't be considered a solo journey. And I think this mental and emotional, call it framework that you need to have, I think that has to be certainly in place. Again, I talked about you're going to have all the core skills. A lot of things will come naturally to you, but you got to have this sort of right mental, emotional state, I think, to really dive in. It's because you are going to have some volatility. You are going to have a lot of adversity. And when you're inside a structure that has a lot of resources and support to call it bail you out of that pretty quickly, which a lot of us have been fortunate enough to be able to work in those environments. This environment may not have sort of the depth or the strength of that framework. And so, therefore, your ability to be stronger on occasion when you deal with the toughest parts of operating your business, I think really are going to be the test of time and really the test of how successful you can become.
Yeah, that's what builds that resilience as well. And then also, I want to transition into building a business without compromise. So, you're the author of Survive and Advance Lessons on Living Life Without Compromise. I want to talk about what inspired you to write the book, and then also, what does it mean to build a life without compromise?
Well, actually, interesting enough, it wasn't my idea
Mm-hmm.
to write the book. It came from, once I announced my retirement, I had many, many colleagues reach out. I had a lot of students from campus reach out. I had a lot of my family reach out. I had a lot of my friends and local community reach out to say, Derek, what are you going to do next, man? You had such a great run. How are you going to leave some of that behind? How are you going to share some of that wisdom, some of those experiences? Give us some of those nuggets. Are you going to go on speaking tours? Are you going to do a podcast? Can you write a book? And so I started to really consider those things. And the book to me made the most sense, certainly early on. And so that's how it came about. I spent time with obviously looking at publishers and people connected to that space and got to the conclusion within about 30 to 60 days that this was something I was willing to take on because it was much more around for the people than it was for me.
Mm-hmm.
I am in this chapter of go giving now versus just being a go getter. I'm now a go giver.
Oh.
And I was inspired by what this book and this project can do for others. And so that's what really got me truly excited about it. I think in terms of the premise behind it, it was start out as a business book idea, but as I started to share my story with those inside the publishing circles, it transitioned to a memoir because it talked a lot about dealing with not only professional but also personal resiliency, personal professional determination, and personal professional pursuit of dreams. And so this ended up becoming much more of an end to end, a full life story. Obviously, taking into consideration an extensive amount of my professional career is in the book, but is also a lot around my personal life, starting out as early as being a child, all the way up until recently, is up to a year ago. So it's really an end to end journey in life, dealing with resiliency, dealing with determination, and dealing with pursuit of dreams.
Love that. And this is the Black to Business podcast. So we are talking to entrepreneurs and they're also thinking about how can I build a business without compromise? So what would you say that looks like and that means especially in your own entrepreneurial career?
I think for me, look, it's, one, I think you got to have conviction.
Mm-hmm.
You got to have a ton of ownership. You got to have a bias for action, so action orientation. You've got to be very consistent on this journey, and then you got to hustle. It goes without saying, right? So conviction, ownership, action orientation, consistency, and hustle. If you put those letters together, it's called coach. So being your own coach or being a great coach to others with that framework in mind. And I think, aside from that, from a leadership perspective, just doing the right thing, being committed to doing the right thing, playing the long game, not the short game. And I think being incredibly transparent in this, I think will allow you to really feel like being yourself while unleashing this conviction, ownership, action orientation, consistency, and hustle in being, the best version of yourself while leading this business that you want it to become its best version of itself.
Yes. And Derek, in this, for you, what lessons have you learned about? So, speaking about like conviction and all of those things, about standing firm on your principles while still making business decisions.
One, I think you have to own it. And to me, I always, when I had to make decisions, tough decisions, and I had to sort of stand back to my value set and principle set, I felt incredibly good about it. Number one, because it was true to who I wanted to be and who I was. And I can maintain that over periods of time. I certainly did not want to be in a position where I would lean one way for one decision, another way for another decision, and my principles will start to become diluted or mixed from a perception standpoint. It creates a lot of confusion. It creates a lot of organizational chaos. It really could affect the culture in a big way. So being always
Mm-hmm.
being sensitive to culture, being sensitive to complexity and chaos, and being sensitive to upholding character in the strongest manner. I always again believed in doing what the right thing was, even if it wasn't the most popular thing. I always played the long game, not just the short game, and always focused on being incredibly transparent and consistent versus not knowing where decisions got made or how they got made, and also being changing of the guard based on the time, the date, circumstance, flipping around and moving principles around. I just didn't want to be in position to do that. So you have to stand your ground. You have to stand in what you believe in. It worked most of the time. Again, a lot of times the decisions weren't popular in some cases, but over the long haul and defending the right thing and just having this sort of mantra of being transparent and consistent, I think obviously always was able to stand the test of time and move along and evolve in a journey that everybody felt comfortable with one way or the other. Therefore, the decisions that you made were grounded in that thought process and ultimately good decisions. Did the outcomes always, achieve the highest level of success that we may have set out to go do? No. But to me, it's more about the process of that than just trying to focus on outcomes. Outcomes are going to happen because of a lot of other things. But if you stay grounded and true to yourself and your principles and value set, I think that is going to deliver much more sustained success over a period of time and over not only just your professional life, but also your personal life.
That is perfectly said. And I love that you say that because as you talk about like the long haul and the long game, and even in your career, I mean 35 years, that speaks to you talking about the long haul and long game. But for many people, especially in today's society, they're thinking about, especially as entrepreneurs, on social media, you're seeing this quick success that people are getting, and many entrepreneurs feel pressure to take shortcuts to succeed. So, how do you combat that pressure, or what advice do you have for those to resist that pressure and stay true to their mission and the long game?
I'm a believer there are no shortcuts in life. And coming from a very challenging childhood to achieving high levels of success in a big time company with big time expectations, that approach was very consistent there too. You just can't take shortcuts. Yeah, we all want to get there quickly. We all want to have all the things that we cherish and dream about in life as soon as we can get our hands on them. But that's just not the way I believe this is built. I believe that you have to look at life as a series of building blocks and foundational pieces that are added that continuously make you a better person and a level up person. And so I actually would be concerned, quite frankly, if I had instant success not built off of lessons learned, not built off of dealing with adversity and resiliency and having to really build a strong culture. I'd actually be concerned about that because there, in my mind, there is no sustainment model associated with that. You're either operating off of luck or timing, which hey, sometimes we all need that. We'll take that. But what's most important again is that sort of inner core. What is that foundation built of, and will it stand the test of time, no matter in good times or challenging times? And so, in my mind, sometimes success that comes instantly can also be a detriment because you're not going to learn the right lessons and what you have to deal with when you do face those rough patches. It's going to be a very different challenge for you that you don't really necessarily have experience with, and all of a sudden it could change the dynamic for you, not only mentally, emotionally, but also outcomes financially. It could also create downward pressures if you haven't done the right things with your money. It could put you in a whole different set of circumstances that you never saw, you never realized, but you're now dealing with it real time, and quite frankly, don't know how to work your way out of it because you're not prepared for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, building that proper foundation. I totally agree. And now I want to shift into the power of relationships in business. So for you, you've built some pretty powerful relationships, I'm sure. And I want to talk about the role that this has played in both when you were in corporate, but also as you transition into entrepreneurship.
Well, I think you said it. I mean, there is tremendous power in relationships across all networks, right? Not not just, where you work. I mean, for me, relationship management was one of the most critical success factors that I can attribute, the growth of my career to. I always talk about the three R's: results, relationships, and reputation. I believe when those three are executed flawlessly and driven performance at a high level, it's going to generate the most success for you in life across the board. Relationships is purposely in the middle of that because I look at this as a house, and that middle, that foundation of relationships, me, keeps everything together and keeps that house strong. You're talking about the ability to make a lot of different connections, ability to build trust at the highest levels, the ability to collaborate with others, to create win-win situations for everybody. So it's not a win-lose thing. When you work with Derek Lewis, it's a how do we figure out a win-win, not how we figure out a win-lose. Transparency, being yourself, being authentic. I want to be around people who are also authentic. Together, we can achieve more. I really do believe in that teamwork structure with that. So, and relationships, look, when you're a bit of in a funk, your relationships will come through. Relationships came through to me, even saved my life. When I had cancer, I made one phone call, and if I didn't make that one phone call, I don't know the steps I would have taken. I could have taken a lot slower steps.
Mm-hmm.
I might have taken missteps, but I make a right phone call to the right person who got me connected and integrated into a situation that absolutely saved my life completely. And so I owe that moment, I owe that whole experience and credit it the outcome to relationships, not to anything else. Obviously, I believe in God, and that's also a critical relationship to have. But you cannot underestimate the power of connectivity, trust, collaboration. It delivers massively for you on all levels, and your job every day is to continue to nurture those relationships to bring out the best, not only in the people you work with, but also yourself.
Mm-hmm. And Derek, for you, what are some of those common mistakes you think people make in trying to build relationships, whether it be in business and in personal, and how can they avoid them?
I think I mentioned. I think there's some times where it's a win lose situation. People want, they expect others to lean in for them, and they're not leaning
Mm-hmm.
back in a very similar manner. So I think that's a recipe for failure. I think trust, breaking trust. When people talk about confidentiality, it's confidentiality, and think too often trust gets broken in relationships. That again, I think derails the relationship and where it could go. I think that's a big opportunity. Some people actually don't work well in teams. A lot of decisions now to get made in groups or multiple people. You want to get perspective. Certainly diversity of thought is a real common, again, success trait for those that operate in teams. Hearing from others and relying upon others to provide input to things that you're working on, I think is valuable. Some people don't value that collaboration. They want to, if it's their idea, their decision, they want to go with that and not value that. So I think there are some missteps that happen with building trust, working on teams, collaboration, being authentic, not being yourself. I think those things contribute to short-term relationships or relationships that don't actually work out in the way that you may have thought they were going to work out, the way they should work out.
Yes, I love that. And I always want us to think about the things not to do. So that's solid advice. It's like these are the things we don't want to do. In addition to being an author, you're also the franchise owner of Big Dave's Cheesesteaks. And I want to talk about like the role of relationships in this and also Orlando Magic partnership. So how did that go?
Yeah, first of all, I'm really excited to be the first franchisee for Big Dave's Cheesesteaks here in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tremendous amount of growth that we can have, not only as a franchisee, but as really an entire corporation. I know the owner, Derek Hayes, obviously very well. I used to support him during my Pepsi days. And so I've always been a big fan of the food. I think his food is exceptional. I think offering Philadelphia cheesesteaks in the southern United States is a real treat because a lot of consumers, don't have as much access to the categories they would if they were living up in the Northeast. So it's always fun to see people who certainly have familiarity with the category to be able to get it on an ongoing basis. So that's really exciting. Again, I believe in the purpose. Derek is a man of the community himself, and so not only while we're in the business of selling as many cheesesteaks and egg rolls as we can, we also want to uplift the communities that we operate our businesses in and lift those up as well. And so it's very much intentional and purpose led work that we do to support those communities. So I'm excited about that, what we can go do, and we're just getting started. The mountain is the mountaintop is very high. We see it. Our goal is to work our way towards a much bigger platform. We can go from being just a call it a regional brand to a national brand. So that works underway. I'm excited about that. In terms of partnerships, and helping bring that awareness and bringing the trial and the sampling and bringing that community together, I always have had great success working with sports teams. And here, living here in Orlando, the Orlando Magic are an exceptional organization. I know that organization end to end. I've been working with them for 17, 18 years now. Outstanding group of people to work with. And so as I transitioned again out of corporate America, which I had a great relationship and partnership with them there, I now am as an entrepreneur and now establishing that relationship as Derek Lewis, the entrepreneur, and that's also been off to a great start. So bringing Big Dave's in has been major for us. It's uplifting, called the food experience with the arena, with the fans that attend the arena. We're going to do a lot of great promotional things, again, to draw fans and interest to our products in the stadium, but also outside the stadium with a give back component. Again, sponsoring programs, organizations in the community and doing it together. Because if we do work together, we'll provide more impact and more scale. So that effort now is continuous off the ground. It's been a great start. I see a tremendous runway there as well. And so having these great relationships inside the marketplace, especially with big time sports partners, is fantastic. We also have Camping World Sports as a major partner. They operate Florida Citrus Sports. They operate in Camping World Stadium, which hosts a lot of big events, bowl games. They just had the Pro Bowl a couple of weeks ago. They're an outstanding partner as well. They're helping us build, again, more awareness to the fans that are in town, fans that come from out of town, also the community work. So when you put these efforts together, it just means more. It's just doing more
Mm-hmm.
for not only our businesses, collective businesses, but also going to do a lot more for the community and the impact it has on youth and all the key constituents of the communities we serve and operate in.
Derek, that is so phenomenal. And I'm just sitting here thinking, like, how you mentioned hitting the ground running. And for somebody listening, what your journey has showed me is that you've been able to, from what it seems, hit the ground running successfully. So, what do you think attributes to that and how you've been able to keep that momentum and smooth transition?
I think I touched on it earlier. I mean, it starts out with you got to have a lot of conviction in what you do, and I do. I have a lot of conviction in this entrepreneurial effort I'm taking on. And by the way, it's going to expand. It's going to keep expanding. Other things I'm looking at to bring as part of the portfolio. Ownership. I own this at the end of the day. I'm not. This is my investment and my thing, and so I'm going to have. Well, I've got a supporting team and a lot of people that provide input. I recognize that I'm the owner of this, and so I own it at the end of the day. This action orientation, I like getting things done. I like getting things done quickly because I think our world is moving quickly. Our marketplace moves quickly. Consumers move quickly, so you have to be on top of that 24/7. I want to be somebody you can count on. So being very consistent in the approach of the business year in and year out. Again, that's whether inside for my associates, delivering a high brand quality of food for the consumers that come in, the guests that come in through the door, and also being there for the communities. I talked about how important that is. And look, I want to be a personal hustle. I've been running at a fast pace ever since I was a little child.
Mm-hmm.
The hustle's never left me. I think if you want to get ahead in this world, you're still going to have to work hard. There's no shortcuts for getting to the top or getting success, certainly sustainable success. And I still believe in that mantra day in and day out. So I think you got to have sort of those attributes built inside. People may have others. I'm not saying these are the only ones I have. These are ones that I value and look at. And then also, you're going to have to be strategic. You're going to have to build and recruit the right team. You're going to have to operate with excellence each and every single day. Your execution is going to have to be very, very sound. So there are other things that are very complementary to that framework. And I believe in those things and live those things out each and every single day.
Yes, I love that. And now I want to transition into navigating financial success and business challenges. So you spoke earlier about your journey into entrepreneurship after retiring. Any advice that you can give to entrepreneurs? Because we have a lot of early stage entrepreneurs on financial habits that they should develop before they transition maybe from their 9 to 5 or corporate job.
Well, one, I think you should, think about your life financially in terms of a portfolio. So while I have these entrepreneurial things that are going on, there are other things that I have built in, and again, I've worked a bit longer career. So certainly, people that are just getting, just starting in the workforce don't have the extent of having a 401k or a pension or maybe an advanced securities management portfolio or other investments into, private businesses and things like that. So I look at my life, real estate and things like that. So I look at my financial portfolio as a portfolio, and this entrepreneurial lane is one lane in this portfolio. I certainly hope it can play a significant role in that portfolio. It gives me opportunity to do other things. So I think you have to think about that. Number one. Two, I think you have to think about your access to capital, whether that's through, small business loans, banks or other institutions. Think about a source of capital. Obviously, investors can come into play to do that, to help you get yourself started, and then you got to have the disciplines to pay those people back right away, consistently on time and back. And I think you're going to have a real strategic plan on your evolution of your business and your journey. Where's it start? Where's it end? What are the steps in the middle to help you get there? And then how do you again think about this thing holistically? But do your research, do your analytics, do your consultations appropriately. Scaling successfully, I think, is very important. You got to show a lot of discipline up front. For this business right here, I'm not taking any salary up front. I want to make sure the business. I want to see how high is high in terms of the profitability, what I can do, and the returns I can generate before I start tapping into anything for myself personally. So that takes a lot of discipline. I'm going to be all over cost management, expense management. So having those disciplines built in, having contingency plans. Look, everything is not going to go the way you want it to go. Even if you work very, very hard at it, there are going to be circumstances out of your control that come in and will affect your business. Having contingency planning is absolutely critical as well. So you're not going this sort of betting on the farm and then something happens, a macro situation happens in the market, and now you're under pressure, and yet you've not thought about how to offset that through contingency planning. So I think there's a sort of list around what does a portfolio look like for you as an individual? What does your strategic business plan look like to get you from startup to scaling? And then what level of disciplines you're going to have execution wise to ensure that you are maximizing returns right out of the gate and set your business up for success early on, and then carry those disciplines forward so that as you start to scale up, now you'll see those things exponentially grow over time, and keeping that discipline inside that will bring you high levels of returns.
Yes, I love that. Transparent and solid advice. And for some people, they do struggle with knowing their worth when it comes to pricing their services. And what advice do you have for people in order to confidently charge what they are worth?
I think it's a great question. I mean, I've experienced that myself when it comes to maybe doing one-on-one coaching and speaking engagements. I early on had a struggle because I was just doing it as part of my corporate life, obviously never charging or creating a value for it. And so I found myself to be in that situation. I would go back to one, I think it's you do research on that proposition, on what you're trying to create from a value standpoint. I think the analytics matter a lot. Consult with people who are in the space already. Ask them questions around how they got started, what their approach is, how they've evolved over time. So there are many people that are already walking in the shoes that you want to walk in. So take the time to do some due diligence with that before you just go out there. And I've learned to do that. Now, as I've talked to people now and gotten a lot of advice and counsel and started doing my own research and my own analytics, I'm in a much more comfortable place at sort of setting expectations for those outside. And I found those expectations to be very realistic, very much on trend, on track. But I had to do that homework up front to do that. I'm just not going to magically wake up and go, well, here's my value for what I want to go do. I'm just not that good. Some people might be that good. I'm not that good to do that. I have to put disciplines into research, analytics, consultation, and then obviously in my mind, once I get that, I can then sort of lock in on a range that is comfortable for me and comfortable for others for us to move forward. Because ultimately, what we're trying to do is provide impact to that next generation, to those groups out there that look to us for getting to the next level. So, you want to be fair in that journey as well, because again, I'm playing the long game. More frequency is better than sort of having smaller high value frequency versus, longer term, lower value frequency. To me is something that's just more important to me, because I believe over time, having consistency of that and building a brand that's going to be built for years to come is much more important to me than, again, reaping maybe some shorter term gains that may not be repeatable or sustainable over time.
Yeah, I love that you made that advice plain and tangible because for so many people, sometimes they think they have to start from scratch. And like you're saying, go look at people who have done it successfully and kind of like follow their path and do that due diligence. And Derek, now I want to transition into the work that you are doing. We kind of talked about earlier the book, and I want to know, what do you want readers to take away from the book?
Well, there are a few things. One, I want you to read the book. So I
Hmm.
hope readers get a chance to read the book.
Yes.
Um, and if I would give you advice on reading a book, one, I think it's this notion of thinking about your own journey of resilience, determination, and pursuit of dreams, right? That to me is a starting point as you approach, before you even get in and started reading the chapters. I think second to that is again this notion of betting on yourself, believing in yourself, and being yourself. I think that's real important. And I think at the end of the day, for me, it's always how do you continue to become the best version of yourself? How do you sort of keep the ceiling of a standard always moving, always evolving above you? So it's something that you can really never ever touch. You can get close to it, but by the time you get close enough to it, it's already moving to another level. That to me is inspirational. That driving, more growth for me, more hunger for me to get better, and also give me a proper perspective in life. In that, there's balance that needs to be had, not only from a go getting standpoint, but also a go giving standpoint. And you're never going to be a point where you've given enough. You can always do more, and so having that visualization of the ceiling always moving is good for me and motivates me, inspires me to keep doing my best. Even though I think I've done well and great and have a lot of check marks, that is still a continuous process.
I certainly agree with that. And I love that you speak about betting on yourself and also being yourself. Derek, where can people continue to watch your journey, connect with you, and support you?
Well, people can follow me. I'm on all the social platforms at Real Derek Lewis, RealDereklewis, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. I post a lot of content. Love for readers and people who follow to take a look at the work, engage, especially around the book. I'm really excited and anxious to hear from those. I've heard from a lot of people already who have had a chance to read it. And I want to stay true to, being the best version of myself. So if there are opportunities to keep doing things right. I want to continue to do those things, obviously, but there are things that I can learn and can pivot and can help others in some ways. I want to be able to do that as well. So open platform, public platform, public pages. Encourage people to follow that. I'm obviously going to continue to do what I do, try to drive the most impact I can for others, and so stay up. You can stay up to date by following, and I hope to at some point engage with most of the users and readers and followers to help them, inspire them to continue to do what they're doing best.
So good. And we'll be sure to put those links in the show note. And Derek, before we head out, I just want to say that this has been such a phenomenal conversation, and you have shared your journey from corporate success to now betting on yourself and transitioning into entrepreneurship. And throughout this journey, what would you say has been the best risk that you've taken?
Oh, I've taken a lot of risks. We would be here like another hour if I went through it. But I think the greatest risk that I took was saying no to what was wrong and saying yes to what was right. Because saying no back in the day when I was a child was easier. It would provide more actually comfort, more stability, more highs, and just an environment of more fun. Saying yes to the right things back in the day wasn't always popular, but I knew that saying yes to the right things were going to ultimately put me on a better track. Again, I talked about the long game versus the short game. So early on, I knew playing the long game was going to be more advantageous for my life, my complete life, than playing the short game. The short game was going to lead to non desirable outcomes. I know this. And so I was fortunate enough to, at that time, take a risk of being unpopular by doing the right things each and every single day. Not that I was perfect, but my bias was to lean into doing what was right, not what was wrong, even though I knew the social benefits of doing maybe what was wrong were going to be more comforting and better for me at that time. So I would look at that time, as a, 10, 11, 12, 13-year old, making those decisions a big risk because the alienation I could have dealt with and seen, and on occasion I did see that and had to deal with that in my own, own circles, did make me feel good, made me feel lonely, made me put me on an island, made me feel isolated. That's not a great feeling to have. So, but it was a risk that ultimately paid off. And if I had to go back through the same circumstances, I would choose the same decisions, obviously, again.
Well said, and it is great to hear that despite, I'm pretty sure, the challenges that you face in going against the grain and dealing with the alienation, that you still would do it all over again. Love that. And my final question is, what does it mean to you to be Black in business?
Look, for me, what it means is the three B's, right? The ability to bet on yourself, the ability to believe in yourself, and the ability to be yourself. So I'm betting on Derek Lewis all the time. Derek Lewis is going to have a lot of confidence in what he's able to go do in his entire life, professional life and personal life. And Derek Lewis is going to finally be his authentic self and bring his whole self to the table each and every single day. That's what I believe Black to Business means.
And there you have it. Derek, I cannot say it enough that this has been an amazing conversation, and I want to thank you so much for taking the time to share your journey and insights on the podcast and be an example of what it takes to play the long game and to do it successfully. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for the work that you're doing to continue to push the culture forward.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the time, and thank you for the great questions today.
Such an incredible conversation, and it was amazing. And I love the fact that Derek shared his journey and the power of patience, reminding us that entrepreneurship isn't about quick wins. It's about playing for the long haul. And as entrepreneurs, I know how easy it is to feel antsy and impatient. But Derek's story is a powerful reminder that success is a marathon, not a sprint. Betting on yourself, trusting yourself, and embracing the process are key to building something meaningful and sustainable. We covered so much today, from how to transition from corporate to entrepreneurship with strategy and intention, to the importance of relationships and staying true to your values while building a business. And Derek's experiences proves that timing is everything. And when you trust the process, your impact can be even greater than you imagine. I want to thank you so much for being a part of the Black to Business family. And for more on today's episode and access to the resources mentioned, head over to blacktobusiness.com/241. And you can also learn more about Derek and his journey there, as well as grab a link to his book, Survive in Advance: Lessons on Living a Life Without Compromise. And of course, don't forget to tune in next week for another amazing episode. But until then, keep betting on yourself, keep building boldly, and keep pushing the culture forward. Later.